Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Channel 79, we're on the record. This is the Environmental Protection Commission regular meeting and public hearing agenda for Wednesday, March 17, 2019. First piece is old business, EPC 4, 2019, Darien Athletic Foundation, 80 High School Lane, proposing the construction of a gravel running track in the wetlands and upland review area. The site is shown on Assessor's Map number 9 as lot numbers 80 and 81. Remember, the commission members have a copy of this.
This is the section of the track that is not on the Diller property.
This is
That is
on
not
high school
the- that
property.
is
This is
not
on
the
the Board of Ed property.
Yeah.
I had no, I was okay with it.
Tiny typo.
Anybody else, Jim?
Question. Is the letter dated tomorrow, typically?
Typically, if
Okay,
it's
great.
approved. If it's approved. Actually, you know what, I usually leave it blank, but
You didn't catch that, did you?
Is it 2 and 80?
yes.
Even though because we're adding in the Diller.
Those are the addresses they've always given me.
Okay.
That is not the Diller property.
It is not.
No, it's not.
Diller property does not have an address.
But all of our agenda items have always listed it only as number 80, so that's why I asked.
Okay, just to clarify, this is for the Board of Ed property?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe-
What
I
we're
could
going to
be
discuss
wrong. I'll
later,
change that.
what is subject to the public hearing is the Diller property, which is governed by the Board of Rec, by the Park and Rec. So that's why it has to be two separate applications.
I'll double check.
I understand
I will
that.
double check that before we send it. Yeah,
And it also kind of comes up in the project description in Article 1 on page 2. And I said to myself, this is number 2 here, hence
Okay.
I got a little more
Okay.
comfortable that 2 and 80 as a reference on page
Right.
1 made more sense.
Yeah, I probably got that from the application, which,
Sure.
I don't know why they,
There was a little typo there, which
Good,
I'll
okay.
give you, and that's my only thoughts on that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Good, anybody else? Good? Okay. Given those slight modifications, can I have a motion to approve? Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Kel. All in favor?
Aye.
Next piece of business is EPC 7, 2019, Joshua Smith, 112 Raymond Street, proposing installation of a drainage system for a replacement house in the upland review area. The site is shown on Assessor's Map number 33 as lot number 16.
yeah.
Passing down to you there.
Mr. DeVesta addressed Darren Ostafine's comments, and Darren has given it
Everybody have one?
an all clear.
Okay. So do we need,
I'm recommending I write an approval for the next meeting.
okay,
It's, I didn't have Darren's final sign-off until Friday.
okay, so
So I'd
we'll,
like some time to write it up. I wouldn't vote on it, I haven't drafted it.
no, I haven't drafted it. Okay, so we'll hold it, we'll kick this over to next meeting.
Yeah, well, I was going to write an approval. unless
April
you-
3,
Unless you
okay.
had objections. But Doug is here.
Too many questions, so I can.
I have a question. I guess it's the letter dated February 28th. Next to the last paragraph, it says, "It appears that the existing pipe is not deep into the ground, therefore the excavation should not be very deep." I mean, like, what does that mean?
That's a different project.
Pardon? Oops.
Did I hand that?
Is that for?
Oh, never
112?
mind.
This is
Disregard.
112 Raymond.
That's for-
Disregard.
This is 112.
That's the
Raymond.
next one.
There's 112, Raymond. Okay, so we'll keep that. Okay, Doug. Next item of new business is proposed amendment to EPC 19, 2018, 175 Brookside Road, 4 Group Inc., to replace a drainage pipe in a wetland. The site is shown on Assessor's Map number 5 as lot number 13.
Oh, yeah.
Same question, right?
Yeah, this one.
I thought you read that kind of quick, to get down to the second to last one.
Okay, sorry. Doug DeVesta, professional engineer representing the applicant. To answer your question is that we're saying that the tile pipe approximately 40...
There is a,
There it is, yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. There is a catch basin right about here, and it goes about 40 feet up, where they said it was a 18-inch reinforced concrete pipe. Then it changed over to like a 10 or 12-inch tile pipe going up to the crossing under the driveway. What I'm saying here is that, because I've noticed, because there's a sinkhole right about in this area in here, the pipe was only a couple inches below grade. And I'm saying that the excavation is not going to be very deep. It's not down 5 or 6 feet. It's only down maybe a foot to 2 feet the most. And that's why I'm saying it's not very deep excavation for that. That's what I meant by that part of that letter there. So what we're proposing to do is going to come up, you see here, going to come up about 40 feet with the existing pipe. Then from that point up to the driveway, we would put in a same pipe. It's a 10 or 12-inch tile pipe right now. It's clogged up with roots, restricting the flow. I think that's part of the problem from going north of the driveway, going back up through the driveway to the north property line, causing problems on the northern properties north to us at the public hearing last year. So replacing that pipe there with a 10 or 12-inch pipe and tying it back to the 18 should help restrict, keep the flow moving from the north part of the driveway, under the driveway, and then continue on down through Stonewall and continue south of that. So that's our request for the modification to the original approval.
Doug, isn't the area just north of that driveway, the area that really sometimes gets totally flooded out?
Correct.
Like-
Yeah, and there is.
The lake?
These are the photographs that we had at the last hearings. So this is the old farmer's drain right through here. You can see just all stones, and what's happened over time, some of the stones had fallen off and gotten into the water course and causing water to back up. And that was part of the approval for us to go in there and to replace some of those rocks and pull them out of the water course there to keep the water flowing. But yes, you're right, it does back up. Also, you can see by the inlet of the head wall on the north side of the driveway, it is pretty well blocked up. So hopefully we clean that out. That'll keep that water flowing. And then by also replacing the pipe south of the stone driveway, we'll keep the flow moving as well.
So you think, will this be a major improvement to this whole, area?
I think it will be, but it's also acting as a detention basin too, because there's a restriction. There's restriction whether whatever size the pipe is, even under the driveway. That's a restriction. That's actually helping reduce the flows down south of us as well. So it's kind of a detention basin, a natural detention basin that's occurring right there.
What makes you believe that that's sufficient? The capacity, the 10 to 12 inches is...
We don't want to increase the pipe because we don't want to have you increased the size of the pipe or put it back to increase the pipe to handle the flows. We're taking the water problem from north of the driveway down to the south and getting the water quicker, getting there quicker. So we're trying to reduce that down, trying to keep it the same amount of water going down south that it is. It's increasing the flows that can cause flooding downstream as well.
Can I ask a question of you? I know this area pretty well, and from your letter of February 28th as well, I was confused as to where the 18-inch pipe is and where you're planning to go to the smaller 10 to 12, I think you referenced. Could you just, Doug, tell us once again, where is the existing and sizing?
Did you get the sketch as well? Did you guys copy the sketch?
Yes.
Okay. So approximately 40. Can you hear me, Bonnie, or not?
I can hear you, but I can hear you better now. Thank you.
Okay, so there's a catch basin on Stonewall Lane, approximately 40 feet up, based on the cammering the pipe. It changed over to a 10 or 12-inch tile pipe. So from that point on.
So the 18 inches down closer to Stonewall
Stonewall
Lane,
Lane, correct.
and then
And it
it
reduces-
gets smaller as it leaves the
Well,
driveway.
Actually, right. Actually, if you think the other direction, it's
No,
smaller.
It's flowing
going-
down, so it's going from smaller to larger.
Right, right.
So north is the 10 to 12, and then it flows into the 18 inch.
Correct. So you're going from a smaller to a larger pipe. going towards Stonewall, because the flow is from north to south. And so
Okay.
so the smaller pipe is from the driveway, south side of the driveway to about 40 feet from the catch basin, goes to an 18-inch pipe at that point.
And the larger pipe, the 40-foot section, is healthy pipe.
Correct, correct. That's an RCP, or reinforced concrete pipe, which is newer. It's a newer pipe.
And then from 40 feet to whatever the measurement is back to the driveway is what you're proposing to
Correct.
replace.
Correct.
As a non-engineer, my question was, I know the volumes of water that accumulate here and to the north. They're quite substantial. I'll repeat it, as a non-engineer, to me it makes sense to extend an 18-inch pipe the whole run. I've heard your comment that you're going to transfer the issue perhaps to the property south of Stonewall Lane, but there's a large area, 100 feet wide, of a God-made drainage system that goes through there. And it seems to me it would be ample to accommodate whatever volume of water is put there.
That's one thing we talked about, and Rich and I talked about this as well. Again, this,
Talked about it at the hearing.
right, because we're looking at this driveway, anything above this driveway here to the north is it's a natural detention basin.
I'm well aware.
And it does flood out on our property, the next property, and I think your driveway's up there as well. As you know, it does flood up in that area, and I know, I've been in the area long enough, I know too. But by increasing this pipe size all the way down, we're taking the problem from here and pushing it down south. Again, yes, there's maybe a large wetlands area south of Stonewall Lane, but then there's houses further down on Brookside that can get flooded out as well. So we were trying to eliminate that, because the water gets there faster, it's going to create more problems downstream of our property there.
I guess I go back to our chairman's question. Do you think it's ample to pull all the water that accumulates not only on this property but above it and have it dissipate effectively for everybody, upstream, downstream, wherever?
Well, I think we're taking the problem from upstream here and now taking it and bringing it down south of us by increasing the pipe. It went 18-inch all the way back, and that was things we talked about at the public hearing, because we talked about, replacing the farmer's drain with a pipe in there. But again, at that point, we're taking the water from up north and pushing it all down south then. And we felt that was going to cause additional problems down south of us.
So let me repeat my question then, just so I'm clear. Your suggestion of taking the now dysfunctional 10 to 12-inch section of pipe, replacing it with an equal size,
Correct.
will address the problem upstream, downstream, and work for the property owner.
I
I think-
what was discussed at the hearing was that putting it back to the way it was by cleaning out, we thought we'd clean out that pipe, and apparently that's not feasible.
Right.
But having that pipe flowing and having the driveway culvert
Cleared.
flowing would be back to where it's supposed to be, but without having the applicant have to go through an entire engineering analysis of what would happen downstream. So it's still, theoretically, it would back up to some degree, but it would drain faster.
Correct. That's my point too. Because right now, seeing the monitor on the camera, it was like 3/4 full of roots and stuff like that. So at that point, you probably only got maybe a 3 or 4 inch area for the water to go through.
Right.
Going to a 10 or 12 inch pipe, now you've got that much more volume going through there. So in essence, it should really should help the improve situation north of our driveway and not really exacerbate the areas down south, because that's the way it was when this
Originally.
Originally, correct.
And it's a three-step process, the way I think of it, for the applicant. Am I right, Rich, that the farmer's drain will
Farmer's
be
drain.
restored to a functioning farmer's drain?
Right, the stones.
Whatever that means.
Stones
Correct.
replaced or
Right.
put back.
Or allowed to have a channel where
channel,
water
right,
can
right.
actually move through.
Correct.
As opposed to today's condition. The culvert underneath the drive, whether it's 2 feet or 3 feet, or it's a little rise in that drive, that's going to be roto-rooted.
cleaned out or something, right? When we get up there to see what's happening up there, correct?
And then what you're suggesting here.
Correct.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Did we put a condition in with respect to when we cleaned out this pipe that there would be continual maintenance on it?
No, not a specific maintenance. I mean, there is a maintenance plan for the property that says the applicant has to, or the future owners have to inspect it and so forth, yeah.
This system, this three-part system
Yes,
has
well,
to
we
be
make it, yeah,
maintained.
right, we always make it a condition that maintenance plan is in file and is known to the, whoever buys the property. It's in the land records.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Anybody else? Anybody else?
Thank you.
Okay. Rich, you write that one up?
Yeah, well, I would, if you would vote on the amendment.
You want us to vote on the
Yes.
amendment? Okay. May I have a motion to vote on the amendment? Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Gunnar. All in favor of this amendment to EPC 19, 2018? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Next piece of new business is proposed amendment to EPC 37, 2018. Brian and Kristen Gunn, 15 Morehouse Drive, to remove and replace decaying and damaged trees. Site is shown on Assessor's Map number 19 as lot number 13.
Mr. Gunn requested to remove some trees that clearly two are dead and the others are compromised. My reason for not just doing it administratively is because it was not just one or two trees. So I wanted the commission to know about it, and they do have an active permit, so I thought, why not just
Amend the permit.
add it to the permit? And they already have agreed to do some new plantings, and I would just suggest we work out additional plantings in the future, you know, additional smaller trees that are more appropriate, that won't, get too big, shadlow, things like that.
Again, we agree. We've,
Could you introduce yourself for the
I'm
record,
sorry, my
please?
name is Brian Gunn.
Thank you.
I apologize.
No problem.
And we've lived here since 2012, and we've already made significant investment by putting trees back there. And while we finished the project on our pool, once everything gets settled and fixing the lawns and so forth, we're going to continue to put plantings around and outside the area and back in the area. We sort of weren't expecting for us to have to take these trees down. We had asked somebody to come in and prune them, and then they said there's several that are going to be hazards to not just our house, but to the pool and our neighbors' houses. And then on top of it, after we got my second estimate in from Bartlett, ironically, one tree not identified by Bartlett fell down on my neighbor's property and broke his fence.
Oh, geez.
Okay, so, to us, it makes sense. I followed up with my neighbor who's to the right of me about that one tree that was on the border of the property. It is on my property, but he was fully supportive to take it down, and he was surprised it didn't come sooner. His exact words was that it was dead as a stump. He was more worried about his kids back there versus him at his house. So, I'm not sure really what else to say. We're definitely committed to make sure that it looks nice back there and continue to plant in there. I just don't know what the plan's gonna look like yet, only because I sort of wasn't expecting us to have to take these trees down now, but we are gonna continue to do it, and we'll talk to Rich about it as we go forward.
Yeah, you want to take it down before the leaves pop? Anybody have any questions?
Are you gonna replant any new trees?
Yeah, we've actually already spent, to be honest, between our rain garden and the trees back there, we've already spent about $20,000-$30,000 on investment in trees, but we're going to continue to do more as well, because we don't want to be barren back there either. And I just don't know exactly what it's going to be like. This all came up in the last couple of weeks. And, I'm starting to get estimates in from landscapers right now as well. But yeah, we're going to continue to do it. It's our property. We're not going to just want to be looking at our neighbors' houses and stuff.
I think for straightening things like shadwood, things that are going to be, 20, 30 feet tall at their maturity might be appropriate.
Yeah, the only thing I will say is, back there in the middle of it, it's pretty wet.
Yeah.
Right, so whatever we put back there, it needs to take. Some of the trees we did put back there, one of them has already died in the past, year. We're going to have to replace that one now as well. But again, I think the message I'm giving you guys is that we're committed to doing it. And we'll, I'm just not sure exactly what it's going to be, and we'll work with Rich on before we have a plan in place.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is the planting plan that you do for the wetlands and for the upland review area, just with Rich,
Yeah.
to make sure that it's all, and then
We've
see
talked
if there's
about
any
the
issue.
upland review area already, but I'll make sure it's firmed up with Rich. I definitely haven't thought about the wetlands yet because we haven't really thought about.
But once you get into
what
the
we do
dead trees, I saw, then,
yet. Yeah, we marked the dead trees and Rich
Yeah.
came out and saw them.
yeah, so, but once you get in there, then, clean it up. We don't want any dead trees, because that's a safety hazard.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. I'm fine with it. Do you-
I am too.
Okay.
I have no question.
Okay, since this is an amendment, we'll vote on this now. Can I have a motion to approve? Thank you, Susan. Seconded by Jim. All in favor?
All right.
All right, okay. Okay, the next item of business is proposed amendment to EPC 34, 2017. Edward and Cheryl Huffman, 8 Highfield Lane, to modify the approved driveway location and construct a retaining wall in an upland review area. The site is shown on Assessor's Map number 6 as lot number 15.
Good evening. For the record, my name's Dan Conlon. I'm the project architect for the Hoffman residence.
Could you spell your last name for me, please?
Conlon.
Thank you very much.
And we're here for modification of our original EPC approval that we got back in 2017. It was originally approved in October 17 and subsequently modified in August of 18 to add the pool house. What I have in front of you is just a diagram that I prepared that shows the status of our existing approval and what we're proposing today, so that you can sort of easily compare what's been approved and what we're asking you to approve today. So we basically are here to execute a more developed landscape plan. The owners have retained Patrick Sweeney of Infinity Design to do a complete landscape plan for the property. And this plan proposes a few changes that we thought needed to be reviewed by the commission. We have some minor changes in grading in the backyard area. We have some additional landscape walls and steps that are in some cases associated with that grading, and a revised layout of the driveway. And I'll get into detail in a minute, but just in terms of the overview, the revised grading in the backyard basically just creates a little bit more usable level area there. We have a significant number of drainage structures that were part of our original proposal, and originally we were sitting those almost entirely in fill material that needed to be imported to the site. This proposed plan gives us a little more level area and also balances our cut and fill a little bit better in terms of the overall development of the site. We're also proposing to move the driveway a little bit, and you'll see that it does go closer to the wetlands than our original approval. It's about 13 feet closer than we were before. However, we're proposing a 28-foot deep buffer that's very heavily planted with a native wetland species as a filter. In addition, you'll notice that the driveway, as part of the change, we've changed a large chunk of it, that area that's immediately south of the house in front of the garage, to a pervious paving system. So
It's pervious.
pervious, correct.
So asphalt pervious or?
Pavers, not pervious asphalt, pervious pavers. And I can show you, we have a detail in the drawings of the pavers that are proposed. And then the balance of the driveway will be chip sealed, so that'll be an impervious surface. So in effect, our new driveway, in terms of total impervious surface, has been reduced by virtue of using some of that impervious paving material. And then the third element of this is that of our plan is our original approval included removal of invasive species in the wetland area, and there was quite a bit of that on this property. A fair bit of that's been executed now. This plan addresses sort of replanting some of those areas with native wetland species, and that's detailed on the planting plan provided by the landscape architect. I have with me also today Tom Quinn, who can address in detail the changes to the drainage, because by virtue of the regrading, we needed to relocate our infiltrators. And that all had to do with depth of groundwater and some sort of technical features of the site. So with that overview, I'm going to turn it over to Tom and let him address the drainage component of the project, and then we can take your questions. I'm not aware of that.
Hi, good afternoon, Peak Engineers. My name is Tom Quinn. My office is located in Georgetown, Connecticut. I am a licensed professional engineer. And as Dan said, I've been contracted to take a look at this site for, originally I was involved for the demolition of the structure and then the construction of the new. And then I was also involved last summer, as Dan said, with the proposal of the pool and the cabana. So each iteration has been a slightly different drainage modification. That's what I've taken a look at again with this third modification. So as Dan said, there's a significant reduction in the asphalt area because we're doing about, I think it's about almost 2,100 square feet of the pavers. And those are permeable pavers. So they're designed with little nubs that stick out to keep the bricks apart. So you've got the either a 3/8 or ½ inch gap that's going to be between each and every brick.
And between the brick?
In between the brick.
And in between the pavers, there will be?
Sand.
Okay.
And sand, and then they'll be set on 2 inches of sand, and below that, I believe there's 6 inches of a DOT4 or like a 3/4 inch stone. So they will be pervious and they will be set. And as Dan mentioned, we did additional soil testing to make sure that we could set those pavers above evidence of groundwater and so forth. And we did that. I think we're providing 12 inches from the bottom of that gravel to evidence of modeling that was that we had a test hole. I think it's test hole 9 that was done just at the edge of the pavers. So we did do this additional soil testing to make sure that we could do these drainage modifications. So what we really did was, as Dan mentioned, instead of having one larger system in the center of the lawn, the landscape architect wanted to create that flat spot. So what we did is we spread it around a little bit. Instead of doing the higher Cultec units, we're now doing many more of the shallow, the 12-inch high units. And those have been pushed down slope a little bit, where there's going to be, the landscape architect chose to do a kind of like a perimeter wall, permanent demarcation between the wetlands and our limit of disturbance. So the units will be sit behind those walls, and then there's going to be a second set of units right up in here, just below where the pool is, where we did a test hole and we had 6 feet of beautiful soil because that's where the old filled septic system used to be. So we basically hit 6 feet of sand and gravel for the old septic. So we're going to have the taller Cultec units there. The system, as designed, is pretty much exactly the way it was approved before. As a matter of fact, the sediment trap that was approved has already been installed. We went out there and we shot elevations on it. The elevations to that sediment trap are going to work perfectly well with the system that's been designed. I'm just trying to think of any differences. So the system that was designed went sediment trap into the Cultec units and then outflow. As I said, we designed 2-stage structures so that the smaller storms will leak out the bottom, and then the larger, the 50-year storm, the units will completely fill before they are overtopped. What we do have, the new thing is the outlet structure, or I should say outlet pad, for the lower system, and we're proposing, I believe it's a 2-inch pipe and a 3-inch pipe. It'll discharge just below that architectural wall. So other than that, those are the differences and the similarities of what's already been approved. Do you have any questions?
Good one. Kelly? Jim?
I may be formulating a question, but I'm not there yet.
How close are you to the wetlands? When you're moving this down, you're moving 13 feet closer? So how far, I know you're 13 feet closer.
Yeah.
Okay, so how far? is that
It
from
varies
the-
in 28 feet in general on the south side to the edge of the wetlands. We do get a little closer in areas, obviously we have wetland crossing here. with
Yeah,
the
oh,
driveway,
obviously
so
the
we're
crossing, yeah,
closer
but
there.
that's been previously approved.
Correct.
So, and that's going to be, is that reconstructed now?
Pardon?
If that part of your project that was previously approved, has that been executed?
Yes, it has. It has. So the driveway is cut in there, but that was an existing driveway location,
Yes.
so really all we've
Yeah.
done is put down some road base.
Oh. I don't have any questions, so Jim, are you getting there?
Sorry to hold up this room of nice people and you, Mr. Chairman. I think I liked everything I heard, and I didn't bring my glasses, so I was trying to look on the larger plan at the area that's just outside the garage, which you said is going to become permeable.
Correct.
And I believe I'm right, with my contact lenses as small as this is, that it's 1,500 feet in large, of permeable surface that was previously not so. Does that sound right?
That's approximately correct. The total area of permeable pavers is about 1,900 square feet, and we have a net of about 800 less of impermeable driveway. We've reduced the impermeable surface by about 800 square feet in this plan.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else? I think that's it? Okay.
I think I'm okay.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you, Will. Rich, you want to write that down for?
Yeah, you need a motion.
Oh, it's an amendment?
Yeah.
Okay, so since this is a proposed amendment, I have a motion to approve this as proposed. Thank you, Gunnar. Thank you, Kelly. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Okay, thank you very much. Next item of new business is ZPC 9, 2019. Sandra Lovegrove, Parcel B of Valley Forge Road, proposing construction of a new residence and related site construction in the upland review area, and a sewer force main in a wetland and water course. The site is shown on Assessor's Map number 2 as lot number 29A. Okay, since this is new construction and has significant impact, I would propose that we have a public hearing on this. Okay, next month. I need approval for that, right, Rich?
I need a motion, yeah.
I need a motion. Thank you, Gunnar. Thank you, Kelly. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Does anybody have any specific questions for Mr. DeVesta?
Okay, as you come in on Valley Forge Road, is this the first property on the right? I went up there today and, everything's covered with snow. It was really hard to tell. I couldn't really tell exactly where.
For the record, Doug DeVesta, professional engineer. Yes, it's the first house, it's the first lot on the right. It's a vacant lot that was created back in the 70s, never been built on. So it is, and the house to the north of this was part of the Love Road as well. So yes, this is the first house. You come in, I think there's a small piece before you, is that a split rail fence? Anything above, north of that split rail fence is the lot there, and with the pond on it.
Gunnar, let me try and help you too, because I had a role here in a prior life. That is Darien Land Trust. On that side of that split rail fence.
Correct.
It's protected forever, which your question said to me is that as soon as you pull off of
Yeah, I wasn't really
half mile onto Valley Forge, I'm wondering if you think it's this corner lot. It is not. It's in from there, because
That's
that's
a circle, yeah.
Right,
correct. You can see it on the little image there.
It's actually the second lot, but there's a split, I think there's a fence right there, and because of snow on the ground, it's mostly been manicured lawn from that point up towards the Lovegrove's old house there. So that's where the property is, and as well as on the east side of the pond and the water course from the pond itself.
Anybody else?
I had some issues. I'd just
Sure,
like to
please.
request an environmental assessment and potentially mitigation plan. The other thing is I spoke with the health department, and I don't know if you've talked to them yet. They had a question about whether the reserve should be built now. And I think they're going to recommend it, but they can't require it. I wasn't sure if that was germane to wetlands. If it would require, if it's better to do it now, or it would require another disturbance sometime potentially in the future. So that was just a question they had and I would ask. So I think that basically I'd like the wetlands environmental assessment impacts.
And a mitigation plan.
Potentially mitigation.
Okay. I mean, relative to your question regarding the installing the reserve area, if the system ever does fail, which we many years down the road, we would probably just replace them in the same location
Okay.
and just remove what's out there and put a new.
So
a new
that would be the
project.
answer, is you have to show reserve, but you wouldn't
Correct.
necessarily have to build it?
That's correct.
Okay, they're gonna ask the question.
Sure.
If they haven't already, they will. Okay. That makes sense.
What type of tree removal?
I'm sorry?
What type of tree removal plans that you have, especially on the eastern side?
On the
of
east side,
forest?
well, those trees were not located, but if you would like them to be located, we can. But the forest main can go around trees and stuff like that. There's mostly a lot of scrub growth on the east side of the pond itself. There are a few mature trees up in that northeast corner, but if that's something you would like, we will certainly have them located, show on the plan for you.
Anybody else? Okay. See you next month.
Okay. Did you want Jim to come down too? Jim McManus? Well, he'll probably do the assessment.
Whoever does, yeah,
Okay.
whoever does it, yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, now we get to the public hearings. EPC 3, 2019, Town of Darien Parks and Rec Commission, Weed Beach Park and Short Lane, proposing wetland filling and compensatory wetland creation and enhancement. This site is shown on Assessor's Map number 56 as lots number 3 and 10.
Good evening, Daniel Biggs with Weston Sampson, representing Darien Parks and Recreation,
Could you spell your last name for me, please?
BIGGS.
Thank you.
Would you like a brief overview?
Yeah, sure.
The Parks and Recreation Department, the town acquired the Short Lane parcel a number of years ago with intentions of adding additional park space to Weed Beach. Since then, it has, the residences have been removed. Some of the vegetation from the residential areas have been removed as well. The Parks Department has cleared some of the area and planted grass to make it more usable. And it once had the DJST sailing facility there that was, has since no longer exists there, but it's used for the sailors in the summer. And the design is to make it into a usable park space with a circular walking pathway, a boardwalk through the wetland area, and some open air pavilion areas and picnic table spaces. In the center is a plaza space that could have community events, possibly music or outdoor seating areas, and also having additional berm areas similar to Weed Beach that prevent any storm surges from coming into space for climate resiliency.
Go on.
So where would this pavilion be? Can you point that
Sure.
out on the?
They're about 8 by 16. There are multiple pavilions here. There are small open air structures, basically 4 posts with a roof on it that would have a size of a picnic table space. So they're here. I didn't mention, but also the idea was to protect existing vegetation between New Our Lane and the parcel, with intentions of getting that vegetated buffer from the neighbors adjacent to the property, and also having additional landscaping to screen some of the areas in between the roadway and the park space.
So Rich, have you seen the planting plan?
Yeah, I mean, right now, essentially, it's all phragmites. It's an old sewage lagoon.
Yeah.
I don't see anything but an improvement. It's definitely, in terms of
So the agreement is
wetland
that they would clean up the fragmites?
Yeah, in terms of wetland quality, it's an improvement, and I have no issue with having passive recreation. Obviously, it's not going to create any problem to the wetland. So.
No. Anybody else? Jim? Formulating?
I kind of echo what Rich's thoughts are. I have not been down. When we were younger, we spent a lot of time down there with a lot of friends that lived in Norotan Bay, and and we may have been here long enough to even remember when that was some kind of pumping system or some
Well, the
kind of.
The sewer system is at the entrance to Weed Beach.
It's still there.
That's still
Right.
there.
The pump system.
The pump system.
There's a,
pumps out
on
to
a,
Stanford, yeah.
and that remains.
That's-
That's not on this
That's
property.
not on this property,
That's
no.
still DPW.
In fact, I think that's even showing.
Yeah.
I will make an effort and go down and just eyeball what you're talking about, but I kind of like what Rich said. It seems to read like a vast improvement to what's
Yeah,
there
it
today.
definitely is. Okay, given that, commission members, I'd like to open up to the public. Is there someone from the public that would like to speak? Bonnie, do you see anybody? I can't, because they're,
No,
no?
all quiet.
Okay. Given that there's nobody from the public that would like to speak, I'd like a motion to close the public hearing. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Jim. All in favor? Okay. Moving on. Next item of business is EPC 5, 2019, Darien Athletic Foundation and Darien Parks and Recreation Commission, Nutmeg Lane, also commonly known as the Diller property, proposing the construction of a gravel running track and plank boardwalk in the wetlands and upland review area, the construction of parking spaces in an upland review area, and the site is shown on Assessor's Map number 9 as lot number 128A.
Okay, good evening. For the record, my name is Joseph Canis. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of Connecticut. I'm a principal engineer with the firm of Ty and Bond, and we were retained by the Darien Athletic Foundation for the design of the path on the Diller property. And just to give you an overall context of the project, this, you see on this board in front of you is a map of the high school property. This is actually part of a larger project. The proposed path on the Diller property, which is down here in the southwest corner, will connect to a proposed path around the high school property. Also, just to take a step back also, with me tonight are Peter Graham and Jed Montanaro with the Darien Athletic Foundation, as well as Rita Volovsky with Ty and Bond. She's our wetland scientist. So just to, again, that was just to get the commission a little context of what the project, and we're making two connection points, obviously. One here at the interface between the high school property and the Diller property, as well as the sidewalk up here on Nutmeg Lane. So the purpose of this project is it's to be able to get the students off the streets. Right now, they run practice on the streets, so this is geared towards help reducing getting for a safety improvement to get them onto a course that minimizes the number of road crossings. Also, the intent is to host one competition a year on this track. So the Diller property is what you see on this board here. It is 5 acres total, 5.00. Nutmeg Lane is at the top here. North is to the top of the sheet. And what we're proposing is a crushed stone path that goes along the perimeter of the property about 20 to 25 feet in, and then connects to the sidewalk on Nutmeg Lane, and then it goes back in towards the high school. This particular property, it's town-owned. It's not part of the high school property. It's administered by the Parks and Recreation Department. And this is actually part of their master plan. And we are including some parking spaces, 6 parking spaces that are in a parallel arrangement along Nutmeg Lane. And the part of that was to be able to have other residents in town, not just the immediate neighborhood, to be able to take advantage of the proposed pathway through the property. And you'll see here, we along the west and the south sides, it's a 5-foot wide crushed stone path. And you'll see that it's curvilinear. And the reason for that is it's actually meant to go around the trees. We had a surveyor go out and locate the various trees on the property that were within 50 feet of the center line of the path, and we made adjustments to the path accordingly so that we're not taking down any trees in there. There will probably need to be some tree trimming just to be able to pass under some of the trees, but we are not taking down any trees. The other thing to keep in mind is that this crushed stone path, we can also have roots in it. So you'll probably see the crushed stone terminate, come to a root, and then continue on again. So the intent is to not disturb the trees to the extent that we can. Wetlands, you'll see here, the wetlands in this light green color, those were delineated by Raina, and she'll talk more about that later. And as I said, the survey was done by William Seymour Associates. So the path itself is going to be at grade so that we're not impounding water behind it so it doesn't act as a dam. So it'll be flush with the existing ground. And as a result, it won't be an impediment to drainage, and so there'll be no increase in runoff from the site as well. The eastern leg of the pathway you'll see here in this light blue that runs through the wetlands. In discussions with staff, one of the things that came out of that was instead of having a crushed stone path through there, make that almost like an elevated boardwalk. And you can see I have a picture here in the upper right of what that would look like. Basically, it's two wide planks that sit on top of a larger piece of lumber. So kind of like a railroad tie, but not a railroad tie. And the purpose of that is to preserve the wetland soils beneath it, and also to allow water to pass through it because it does get wet in that particular area. And that wood, and you'll see in the details, that detail does come from the U.S. Forest Service. The wood that we are proposing is a ACQ pressure treated, which is a non-arsenic compound. And I did a little bit more research on that, and the USDA Forest Service did a study in 2000 titled Environmental Impact of Preservative Treated Wood in a Wetland Boardwalk. Publication number FPL RP 582, February 2000. And their conclusion was that based on their studies of these that are ACQ treated, there's no adverse impact to wetland plants or species. So and a little bit of the history on this, we did have some pre-application meetings with both the Parks Commission as well as EPC and Planning and Zoning staff. And as a result, some changes were made. In addition to that, the addition of the boardwalk, we also shifted the parallel parking spaces on Nutmeg Lane a little bit further to the west to get them a little bit further from the wetland area here.
Joe, will those parking spaces be on the road, or will they actually be off the road?
They are going to be on the road. We do have to cut out a little bit into the sidewalk and route the sidewalk around it. But there basically be parallel spaces that are connected directly to the road. When we were in our initial planning for this, one of the things that we were thinking of was maybe putting the parking spaces on the property itself. But when we got the wetland delineation back, it just didn't lend itself to that. So our total wetland disturbance is 3,573 square feet. And our upland review disturbance is 3,940 square feet. And you'll see that 50-foot upland review line, that's a dash blue line, and it snakes its way over here. And pretty much everything north outside the wetlands is also in the upland review area. Work will be done by small machines by hand, obviously, because of the forest. The trees in here the construction activity is going to be limited by what they can get through in there. And we do plan a sediment erosion control plan. And what we're proposing for sediment erosion control are straw wattles that you can stake into place and then move them as your operation continues down the line. So instead of just digging a trench and laying several hundred feet of silt fence, we're going to do it in stages. I think that's probably the most appropriate way to do this. So that said, that concludes my portion of the presentation. Would you like to hear from our Raina now, or would you
Sure.
have any questions?
There's one more, oh yeah.
Go ahead. Well, I have a question.
Sure.
You said that the study on the wood
Yes.
was done in 2000?
in 2000.
Has there been any update to that? I mean, that's quite a while ago.
It's been quite a while ago. Yeah, it's hard to believe 2000 was 19 years ago, but to my knowledge, that I haven't seen any updates on that.
So I had a question on the parking and the sidewalk. So if you have to move the sidewalk to accommodate the 6 parking spaces, is now the sidewalk coming further into the wetlands? How is that? I'm just not sure I understand exactly.
There's an existing stone wall here.
Yeah.
That separates the wetlands from what's to the north, and our sidewalk is outside on the
Got
other
it.
side of the wall.
Any feel for like how much use this will get? Any estimate? Maybe you can't answer that.
Yeah, in terms of use, it'll be used for practice, right? And I don't know how many runners will have on it, but it'd be obviously during a limited window when they do practice, and then that one competition a year.
Is that boys or girls or both?
I think that's both.
That's two.
Yeah.
Park and Rec has to commit to maintaining it
Correct.
and cleaning it up, because they can't, the odd Gatorade water
Right.
bottle or whatever, I won't tell you what went on there before. And so, do they commit to that?
Yes, they did.
Okay, because they have the staff. I just want to make sure that
Right.
that gets on their maintenance plan to be able to
Right.
go there. Rich, that should be a point to that regularly gets cleaned up.
And as a follow-up on that too, for example, for the competition, the Board of Ed, or the athletics department will also assist in the cleanup effort.
Okay, fine.
I suspect this will be a track that would be open to any resident of Darien, is that correct?
That is correct.
Well, this piece,
Right.
this piece, yes. The high school,
Yes.
no. You just can't go on the high school
Right.
and, at
Not even off-
noon and
Not on off hours, though?
on off hours, yes,
Oh,
absolutely.
yeah.
Off hours, because school's not in session.
Oh,
When school's in
right.
session, then obviously, no.
But was that not the intention of the boardwalk, was to create a loop for?
That's
Yes.
exactly right. That's exactly right. Because the school property, it would be restricted during school hours, and it just didn't seem to make sense just to have a path that dead-ended here at this high school property line. So we did provide that eastern leg to make a third of a mile loop.
Yep.
I happen to think this was a great upgrade for the high school, for those that like to run, something I did just after the Civil War. I was an active runner. And I think, not see the kids running on the macadam streets all over town I think this is a tremendous addition.
Well, this piece of property was purchased in the mid-'80s, and it's been fairly contentious because they wanted to put baseball fields there, soccer fields, tennis courts. I'm sure you can probably come up with
Remember a pool at one time?
Yeah, it was, and so, but the problem is that the Diller property actually extended all the way to Hollow Tree. And so the town only bought this 5 acres. And so, and obviously the reason they sold it was because it was so wet.
Right.
Okay, the Dillers, who had owned it since the 1900s, had it. So it was an incredibly wet piece of property. And so the other uses that were suggested were highly invasive to the wetlands and things like this. And this is a very non-impactful proposal to be able to use this piece of property that's been lying fallow since I went to high school, and so and that was before the Civil War. And but anyway, that's just a little history for the commission to. Right.
And the 5 acres is outlined on your drawing.
That's correct. That property line is shown in red here.
So that loop is not far from the perimeter of a 5-acre run. Your proposed track
Right.
is very close to that perimeter. That's a beautiful lot.
That's nice. It's nicely designed.
And I think Mr. Chairman, you make a great point. This use, at least in my mind, helps preserve, the birds and the bees throughout here.
Yeah, it's minimal impact to the wetlands. Let's put it this way, I know that property. And so, for over the years since I went to the high school there. And so, I know there are old buildings there, there's old foundations, stuff like that around there.
Right.
So, it obviously was used at one point in time, back before you and I were born. But, anyway, anybody else before I open up to the public?
No,
Okay.
I think the environmental.
Oh, yes, sorry. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Raina Velosky. I'm with Ty and Bond. I'm a professional wetland scientist, and I'm a certified professional soil scientist. In October of last year, I went out to this gorgeous property and delineated this wetland. It's a forested wetland, mostly red maples, and there's some light understory shrubs, a lot of spice bush, which is one of my favorites. It smells so good when you accidentally break off a leaf, so you know what it is. It is also a hillside seep. There's a few ephemeral riffles that go through, and there's a few areas of ponding in here. There is a water course where the water flows to, which is down there. So the water flows towards the water course. There are invasive species out there also. So Japanese knotweed, there's a huge stand of Japanese knotweed, Japanese barberry, which holds ticks, loves the ticks. Oriental bittersweet is out there. So I believe part of the mitigation for the wetland impact is to remove invasives and plant native wetland species that will tolerate the wet, dry areas. So the functions and values of the wetland are groundwater discharge, and some flood flow alterations because of the water course. And I believe that this track will not interfere with those functions and values.
Both sections. In your professional opinion, the walkway won't do anything, the walkway will not interfere with the wetland functions, and the gravel path which goes around the other side?
That is correct.
Okay.
Any questions?
How about the parking?
Well, the parking is not in the wetland, so I don't believe it will interfere with the functions and values. So there's already traffic on that lane, so a few additional cars, the spaces are very limited, so I don't think it'll impact.
Did we get a planting plan, or we just got a plant?
No, there's no specific plan. I think I passed on, Joe had passed on a list of possible species. I don't know, Raina, do you have some idea of the extent of planting? I know there's a lot of invasives, but there's also a lot of native stuff that you'll have to identify and keep. So I think the idea would be to fill in where the worst of the invasives leaves it denuded, and then work around the spice bush, and I'm not sure what else is in there. Maybe that's the only thing.
There's some winterberry and
sure.
some good, there's some nice plants. Some of the plants I had suggested for the planting plan are nice flowering plants, which will hopefully draw in some like birds and other species to make it a more habitable area, because right now there's limited food for animals. I mean, we don't want all the animals to come to this area, but there is a nice forested corridor close by, so the species are in there. So it'll be nice, and the flowers in the springtime will draw in people to walk around.
And the other thing would be, the maintenance or the recurring removal of the invasives 3 years or so is typically what the commission asks for.
Anybody else? Okay, let's open up to the public. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on this topic?
Yes. Oh, okay, I'll go. You guys can. You guys can learn. I'm winging it here. I live at 6 Nutmeg.
And your name, sir?
Pardon me?
Your name, sir?
Dean Hatfield.
Thank you.
So basically, my biggest concern is the parking lot that's going to be in my front yard. I don't think it's really been thought through. I don't think there's room. I think to put that in, I don't know to scale, but to put it in, I think it would infringe on the wetlands. The other is why not put those parking spaces in the high school area across from like right field of the softball field area. So that's really, I don't have a problem with the track, but I do have a problem with the parking lot. I also don't know, is it going to be hard, blacktop, pine needles, what kind of surface area is it?
It's gravel, proposed gravel.
It's going to be gravel, okay. The way that bend of our street goes, I don't see how you're going to be able to fit those spaces without putting in the wetland, and then that's going to kind of, move the flow of the water. There is quite a bit of water that comes from across the street and goes between our property, which is 4. Oh, you're 8. Yeah, the lower numbers up above. So that's a concern of mine. I don't know if that's been thought of. My first guess would be, because I know we have a lot of people that want to park in our driveway because they're a junior in the high school. I could see all the juniors just filling up that parking space. So when you're saying you're opening it to the public, there's no way during the high school period you're going to have an empty space there. It's going to be high school kids, and nobody's going to monitor that. And then the other is, if you put it, they have the high school during the summer, so why are you adding more parking spaces?
I did discuss that with my boss, Mr. Ginsburg, and that may be either a planning and zoning issue, possibly. It's also something that you could bring up with the police commission in terms of signage and so forth.
Well, but then I see we're wasting resources on the police to monitor 6 spaces where, why bother? You've got a whole parking lot in the high school, and you can put it straight across from the softball field. There's that empty field, I don't even know where, but if you go straight across from right field, you can put it there if you wanted extra spaces, but you've got a whole parking lot there that people can park in. So I just don't understand why you even need that piece. I will say, and I know I don't want to take your thunder, but some of that boardwalk that's going through, that's a major water flow that goes on the back side of their property. And we have another drain that goes straight across between our property that's never been maintained. So when you're saying you're going to maintain and clean the waste there, we don't see it happening now. I'm usually going across the street at the drain pipe that's just a kitty corner from my property. I'm cleaning it every year. I'm shoveling it out. It's filled with dirt every single year, so nobody has ever cleaned it I've been there since 2001, and nobody has ever cleaned it, so.
If you put in a citizen request, that is a town road. You go to the
Well,
citizen-
but then are we going to have to do that and monitor the?
No, I'm just saying it's
access
a town
here on
road, regardless of whether the project
Okay.
was built. It is something you can request through the citizen request line on the website. And I do believe they respond to those.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I guess those are my main points, but like I said, I've been there a long time, so I know the property across the street very well, the Dillard property.
So the proposed kind of boardwalk pathway, you're saying that, you think that would interfere with the flow of water?
Well, I know 8 Nutmeg can speak better to it, but yes, there's a huge flow, and I know it's over the last probably, I'd say 3 years, it's been building up in their backyard, the water flow, because it's not flowing well enough, as well as between our property at 6 Nutmeg. There's the drain that goes right into the street. There's two of them that are parallel to each other, and they kind of split 8 Nutmeg and the high school side of my property on 6 Nutmeg. And it's basically, you're almost in an island during the winter time because there's so much water flow. So my concern is that those pilings or the Army walk path, that you kind of described it that way before when I came in a couple weeks ago, how that's going to obstruct that water flow. So,
Okay.
if anything, I would be concerned that their house is going to get, it's probably going to flood the basement and everything else almost every winter. So, but as far as the track, I don't have an issue. It seems like you're trying to be pretty sensitive, but sensitive to the wetland area. It is extremely wet over there. There's a few spots that aren't, but most of it, I'd probably say maybe you've got 2 acres that doesn't get too wet, but the other 3 are extremely wet, basically year-round. And it also provides for, like in my backyard and all the way up Hollow Tree, there's a slope, so it does tend to go in and it flows back out. So I don't know. I assume everybody's kind of thought through the process, but I'm kind of skeptical in a number of areas. But also, like the parking lot, I don't know if you're putting lights in there, doing other stuff, but I really don't think that
There's no lights.
is
There's
really
nothing-
necessary.
Mr. Connors, in his proposal, there's no lights.
Okay.
There's no lights, there's nothing there to, there is ambient light from the high school, but that's there today. Okay, so when you drive around the ball field there, that has lights and
But
that has.
I
and
will
that's,
also say that probably the current sidewalk that's there is about as big as this opening of your, and then from where this barrier is here to the wall, maybe a little bit further, is where the stone wall is. So if you're going to put a parking space in there, even though it's going to be parallel, where is the sidewalk? Are you going to narrow the street? We've already had, I know I've had 2 cars go through our front yard just because of that bend. They're going too fast. And that's right where the parking lot's going to be, and so there's going to be other issues because they have to swerve even further away to get around those cars, and then they're just going to head into either my yard or 8 Nutmeg. So these are all the concerns I have.
Right.
I just want you guys to kind of think through this a little bit more thoroughly. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Next member of the public?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Don Genio, Genio.
I'm sorry.
Don Genio, Genio. We're at 8 Nutmeg Lane, which is directly on top of the school. We have some similar concerns that Dean has, but there's more impact in our backyard, on our side yard, because we have a brook that runs completely around the house. And you mentioned maintenance and filing a request to have cleaning done.
I'm not sure which pipe.
The one that crosses under Nutmeg.
That is a town.
That's a town one.
Pipe.
That's a town one, and if you see blockage there,
You put in a queue request.
We've also put in a request for trees that had fallen last fall during that major storm. And a front loader from town just pushed the tree on the sidewalk. I put in 3 requests to look at that tree for the safety of the people walking by, and nothing was ever done. As Dean said, there's more water now. It's now a lake. It's not wetlands, it's a lake. Anytime anything's done, or anytime there's a rain, our backyard
On
is
this piece of
completely
property?
flooded. I'm sorry?
On this piece of property?
Yes, if you go there, you'll see that it's a complete lake now. You're proposing, we're opposed to the parking as well, because we know that as many spaces as you have in the high school, we're constantly being asked by juniors for them to park in our driveway. And if you have 6 spaces that are not identified for anyone, there are going to be people that park there during the day. You say no lights, but as projects progress, maybe you'll say one year, oh, I think we need lights, or maybe we should put something else down. So the parking doesn't make any sense. As you cross Nutmeg to go on the west side where our property is, there is a brook that runs along the side of our property, and the gardeners that handle, and I mentioned this to you, that handle the property, constantly throw debris down, and it's flooding the brook. Your proposal
Which property
states
is
that
that?
you want to make
Excuse me, which property is that, is throwing debris in that
the
property?
school gardeners.
Huh?
And we had requested prior to this that trees be planted, so we didn't have to look at the school parking lot, which is expanded, which wasn't there when we moved, and now it has become, more school property than residential property. We requested trees to be planted, so we didn't have to look from our den and our porch to see cars parked. We have never seen a tree planted there. The brook that runs along the side of our house, that's proposed to be the running path. A lot of wildlife running back and forth there, whether it's turtles or deer. Your proposal shows that the path that crosses Nutmeg, that's going to run parallel to that brook, is right on top of the brook. I don't understand really why school activities are being placed onto a non-school property. That's just another issue.
Well, the track, the high school cross-country originally went down high school, started at the track, went down High School Lane, up Middlesex, Hanson Road, and around. So it's not unusual for, that's the way it was, okay, back in my day. And so what happens is, and I can remember that, there were safety concerns of when you run on the road, it's very clearly a safety hazard so that people can see you. Obviously, you run against traffic, etc. And what they're trying to do is to pull the cross-country track off of, and to put it around the high school, and then to add a piece here that is on this piece of property, which does not involve traffic. That's the scheme, and so it's for the safety of the students, for the safety of the runners. Okay, as I understand it. So that's the reason for putting the track here, okay, around the property.
We understand that.
Yeah.
But we also understand the impact that it's going to have to the Nutmeg residents.
Yes, absolutely.
And the parking, that just doesn't make any sense. We have enough traffic in the morning and the evening, and when there's activity, athletic activity in the school, and the speed at which the cars travel is unbelievable. Bumps don't do anything to slow them down. We're just going to have more traffic now. And it is going to impact the flow of water. If you go there, you're going to see that it's a lake. And as Dean said, our backyard is now the flooding is almost to the back of the house.
Well, we have a wetlands scientist here who's accredited.
I listened to what
somebody said. And so I'll be interested to hear her response.
Please. Speak one at a time.
I'll be interested to hear her observations to what you're saying.
And you also mentioned that they did some studies, but that was 2000, and it's 2019 now.
Okay,
So
the studies of the 2000 were considering the blue line there, which is the board plank. Okay, and previously, people are a little bit more sensitive. When you treat wood with arsenic, the wood lasts longer. Okay, these are non-arsenic, and they've been tested now through the National Forest Service, was it? Forest Service. And so what happens is it's non-arsenic, and it's, according to
You'll find boardwalks like these on virtually every Audubon. I would probably say land trust properties, there are boardwalks like that.
And how wide is the boardwalk?
2 feet. Well, 2 plank wides, less than
2 planks is enough for people to be running on?
No, they're not.
No, they're not running
running
it.
on that.
No, it's to keep people, the running track goes off onto Nutmeg Lane and then eventually makes its way back to the track. This is so that the high school is restricted space. For example, since I have no business at the high school, it's really, I'm not supposed to be there during school hours, and for obvious reasons. So, but if I wanted to walk this, okay, I have a loop on the Diller property that I can walk, and I don't have to wait till school's out of session. Okay, and so that was the purpose of doing the boardwalk. Yeah, it's boardwalk, I mean.
And the general population could walk there as well
This is
after
a-
activities.
This is a park,
And
this
they can
property is
also-
under the jurisdiction of the
Right,
parks.
right.
Parks and
So
Rec.
anyone in the public can walk there while hours of day and night and park there as well.
Well, they can do it now, okay? It's just.
Well, they don't, because there's no place for them to walk. They walk on the sidewalk, which is fine, but they're not walking in the woods and they're not parking on the street.
But that's not to say that they can, okay?
Right.
I've done it with a couple of friends of mine, and with I'm a former chairman of P&Z and a couple, and both former members of EPC, just to check out the property, because I knew it way back when, but now the issue is just to check it out to see what's happened to this piece of property.
You mentioned before that you've been thinking, and I know you said it when we talked a couple of weeks ago, you've been thinking for years what to do with the Diller property. Why does anything need to be done? Why can't it just be left as a wild wetland for the
It can.
wildlife? Okay.
It can, and this is a proposal.
Okay.
This is a proposal by the Park and Rec to see if they can get a better use out of this piece of property than is currently. I also this was approved by Park and Rec in their overall plan, as I recall, right?
Joe mentioned that. I'm not aware of that. But
Okay.
I think I've heard that.
I've heard that too, but I'm not that familiar with Park and Rec. So this was part of their master plan at some point in time. But this is a proposal, and it's going through it, and this is exactly the reason why they're public hearings. Okay,
Well,
to
there will be
hear
a
all
planning
points of
and zoning
view.
hearing, which
Well, I
will-
appreciate your hearing our comments
Yeah.
and just would ask that you look a little deeper into it
Sure.
and give some consideration to the residents of Nutmeg Lane.
Mhm.
All right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, good evening. My name is Robert Service and I reside at 67 High Lane. Our property backs up to the southwestern corner of the Diller property. We are concerned about the cross-country track and walking trails that are proposed on the Diller property and the effect that it will have on the protected wetlands area. The proposed plans do not take into account that the property is wet most of the year with standing water throughout the school year. The property has become wetter and wetter each year that we have lived on Holly Lane. With the precipitation this year, it may not dry out at all. In some areas of the Diller property, the wetlands area is knee-deep. This corresponds to the western wetlands area of the property that the plans anticipate the trail will go through. Right now, this portion of the trail is underwater. Thus, it makes the cross-country track and walking trails unusable for most of the year. There are also running streams on the western part of the property that have not been accounted for on the proposed plans. In addition, there are a number of large boulders and trees that would need to be removed to put in the trail, which would be within the 50 feet of the wetlands area. We've been back on the property on a number of occasions picking up trash that is dumped there and are very familiar with the water courses on the property. According to the Town of Darien Inland Wetlands and Water Courses Regulation dated April 17, 2016, Section 2.1, this discusses the regulated activity to include anything within 50 feet of the wetlands or water course area which this project would affect. Section 4.2 discusses permitted activity provided they do not disturb the natural and indigenous character of the wetland or water course by removal or deposition of material, alterations or obstruction of water flow or pollution of the wetland or water course, which this plan clearly would disturb. We do not feel the current plan identifies the obstacles that would need to be addressed, or more importantly, its impact on the environment. We do not feel the plan is detailed enough for the EPC to rule on the filing. We have submitted pictures and what I handed out of the property that will show the concerns that we have discussed. They show a continuation of standing water in the western wetlands area over the last month and a half. There is no appreciable decline in the water level over that time. We also included a map of the Diller property and surrounding properties from the Town of Darien's regulated wetlands and water courses map that shows the wetlands area on the western portion of the property and what that will be affected by this project. We would request that the cross-country track, walking trail, and parking spaces be physically marked out, with the trees and boulders that would need to be removed being marked as well. With this information, the EPC can walk the trail, make an educated decision on the impact to the environment, the protected wetlands area, and the potential alterations to the water flow of the wetlands and water courses on the Dillard property. We appreciate your time and consideration for this. And in particular, so our property is right here. The pictures that I passed around, this whole area in here is where all the standing water is, and it's probably like that at minimum 9 months out of the year, and especially now with the amount of rain that we've had. And we've been living in this home for the last 6.5 years. Every year that water becomes worse and worse as we go through the year. So the ability to even use this track, in particular on this section of the property, I think is going to be very challenging and something that needs to be considered more closely. To your point around the original Parks and Recs master plan, what they had done, they had actually cut that further up this way to avoid this area, that because of all the standing water. So that plan, in my opinion, was a better option. Now granted, it doesn't provide the distance I'm sure that the cross-country track needs, but at least it gets away from this wet area here. But this area in here, we walked it 2 weeks ago. There are streams in there that would be basically taking out, if this is stone here, would be covering the stone and basically coming from this property up here. There was a stream going all the way down to the farther end of the property. I'm not quite sure how you're going to be able to maintain a trail here with standing water for most of the year and having streams going across the trail, basically taking out what is supposed to be something not only used for cross-country track, but used for the community's use as well. To me, it's going to create more problems going forward than Parks and Recs anticipates. And so from a cost perspective, it's going to cost more because the idea of winding this trail through trees, I walked that area as well. There's no clear path. There's no clear path to be able to walk this straight on this edge of the property and not have to take trees out. There's absolutely no way. And again, I would encourage you to make that walk as well.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Question.
Sir?
So you say like right now it's almost all standing water, and how long has it been that way?
Well, within,
The part where you
No, she can't speak from
she
the,
can't pick, okay,
She has
sorry.
to come up to the podium. It's okay.
and
She can come up to the
introduce
podium.
yourself, please.
Hi, I'm Kimberly Service at 67 Holly Lane.
Thank you.
The part, I can see, where all the water is, I think it's right over in here. I'm back there picking up trash regularly because the kids go back there. And it has standing water on drought years till the beginning of July. Then it might be dry for July, August, and September until we get the rain. Pretty much not, on drought years, it was 9 months a year, it is wet. And as you get a little bit more, it's knee deep. So that's the problem of is it going to end up being usable? I understand you were there in October and maybe that was one of our kind of drier periods. Our concern is to go ahead and do this whole thing and basically not be able to use it because it's underwater. We're not opposed to the track or any of that. We would just like someone to go out and mark it all out for you, identify what boulders need to be removed, what trees need to be removed, and see if it's feasible. It's a lot of expense and a lot of disruption if it can't be used. So that's our feeling.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Christine Wood, and I live at 55 Holly Lane. I actually live right at the corner of Norotan Avenue and Holly Lane, and I've actually lived there since 2004, and so I also am a runner, so I would love the idea of a track, and I've actually run this course by myself. And my concern is, I guess I would have a question of what's the mileage in this little Dillard property? Like, what's that mileage adding to what it is around? What's that piece of it?
Sure.
That's my first question, I guess, to you.
Okay, for the record, Joseph Hannis.
Joe, go run the other side of
Go
the,
run the other side?
thank
Okay.
you.
Again, for the record, Joseph Hannis. The distance of the loop around the Dillard property is 1/3 of a mile.
Okay. Okay, so my point about that is like, there's a lot of disruption for, for a cross-country team, having been a track person, we're doing a lot of disruption for a third of a mile in there. And going back to the fact that I've lived in that house since 2004, I can't begin to tell you the amount of water that we have in our backyard and the increase of the water. We had to invest in basement systems in the second year that we lived there. Our entire basement, we have a crawl space, and it is a pool liner. We have 2 sump pumps that go constantly. And every year that we've lived there, it's gotten worse. And I would piggyback on the people that live on Nutmeg Lane. When we first lived there, there was a stream when we first moved there that ran from Nutmeg Lane through the back of the Dillard property and then over around Norotan Avenue. And that is so full of debris and everything else that is no longer running. So somewhere it's blocked up. So that's probably why
Can you tell me where
his.
that is?
Yes.
Could you show me where? Can you
Oh,
just point on the map?
yeah, I don't know if I can. Okay.
You said you're at the corner of Norotan?
So where is
Nutmeg's at the top.
Nutmeg's at the top
Nutmeg's at the
here?
top.
Yep.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so I am, is this Norotan Avenue?
No, Norotan would be to your left.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's right. So this is, let's see, all right, I'm right here. Okay, so if you go into the back, if you're heading into the high school, in this corner here, right at the corner of the high school.
Okay.
So this is my property here.
I see.
Christine Wood. So if you're going back here, there is the section where this was like a running stream of water and it went into the road.
Oh, okay.
This is the old, is it brook? And it goes under the road, goes under Norotan Avenue, and then back into like a drain, a catch basin. This is now full of water, full of debris, it doesn't flow anymore.
Okay, that's on the school property, and that could be maintained by the school grounds. That is on the school property.
Well, it should be maintained.
Should be maintained by the school.
Right, but I'm wondering if that's probably why his property is now.
I can't say, but that would be maintainable by the
Yeah.
Board of Ed.
But I guess my point is that every time there's construction that goes on, and I think that's contributed to all of this, my concern is that once you start trying to do construction or do whatever it is that you're going to be moving more trees and things here, I just think it's going to make the wetland situation behind our house worse. And the storms that happened this year, we have an acre of land, and I will tell you that the rain that we've had this year now has actually come up into my driveway. So every year it has gotten worse. So we've lived there for 16 years. So I am a runner. I had a dog. I walked him everywhere. I respect the fact that it's scary to walk around this town. The cars are going fast. I ran on roads in North Kingstown when I was on the track team. I respect all of those things. I'm just not sure that for a third of a mile to add to this track, I'm just not sure that we really appreciate how wet that land is. If my backyard looks the way it does most of the time, I can't even fathom how bad it is back there. I'm just not sure, I respect the fact that that's your world, but I just can't imagine that that's a place that we could really use for a track. So that's all I wanted to say, that, again, I'm not opposed to running or any of those things, and I do respect them also that the traffic around the high school is so bad. I can't even imagine putting 6 more parking. There's already enough congestion on their road. Putting 6 parking spaces on that road, I think you're just asking for trouble, so. Thanks.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Hi, Darcy Adeletta, 69 Holly Lane.
Could you spell your last name, please?
Adiletta. And we are actually catty corner to the Dillard property right next to the Sarabasas. And I think our point, Robert made it very well, is that we want you guys to just really take a look at that property. My kids would play back there when they were younger. I have more shoes probably at the bottom of that water pit that have never surfaced. And to use that as a track, you're going to spend a lot of time and effort trying to get something that's not going to be usable for any length of time, or for a running track. I mean, you're going to have the roots, you're going to have trees. My other concern is how you're going to get all that material in there, that you're going to be moving material, even if it's small trucks. You're still going to be disturbing the wetlands area. We only have one chance not to ruin this property. If we go in there and start it and try and do something and it doesn't work, or the cost gets too prohibitive, then we've ruined the property forever. And then we're going to be spending time and money excuse me, trying to fix it. So I just asked that Robert's suggestion, perhaps having the DAF map it out, have people walk it, and see how functional it really is and how wet it truly is. It's gotten worse every year, and this year it's truly terrible. It's knee-deep. You can't run knee-deep water. So just wanted you guys to think about that.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Molly Bogdan, B-O-G-D-A-N. My husband and I live at 59 Holly Lane, so the entire north side of our property borders the Diller property. A lot of my comments have already been said, so I'll just kind of keep it short. We feel like the proposed track idea is possibly in theory a good idea if it was implemented the right way, but we have significant concerns about the feasibility of doing this project as planned and the ability to implement it without additional measures that aren't considered in the current proposal. These several concerns about the proposal are probably more appropriate for planning and zoning. For the purposes of this meeting tonight, there are 3 specific areas that were of concern to us. We and our children have been in the woods a significant amount of time since it has been flagged for the current path. And our first concern is that based on where the tags currently are, as everybody has mentioned, it's really hard to see how this will be constructed without the use of some sort of heavy machinery. There are definitely large trees and significant boulders near the back of our property that appear to be, from the way that it's marked, appear to be hard to move around where this path is. So it seems hard to see. Obviously, the use of heavy machinery would disrupt things in this area. Our second concern is that the proposed path and the planked area, as everyone has mentioned, go through significant amounts of water. I know the survey was done, or the research was done in October. We're new to the area, but being out there regularly with my kids since October, there's much more water than maybe what was seen at that time. As people have mentioned, there are areas that are knee-deep, as my kids' pants can attest to. So it doesn't appear that that's well accounted for in the plans. And what we're concerned about is that any additional modifications that would need to be made afterwards, we're concerned about additional modifications. And the last thing is just that if it's passed and more needs to be done to clear or excavate in the path area, which it's hard to imagine path construction not requiring, we do have significant concerns about where a meaningful amount of water in this wetlands will be relocated. And as everybody's mentioned, we've seen problems with this all around our property. So in conclusion, we're concerned that the current plans don't accurately account for the water, some of the trees, the boulders, and would need both heavy machinery and would cause meaningful disruption. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Somebody, there's...
I'm sorry, I can't see in the back.
Hi, Bill Ray, 8 Seagate Road. I'm a walker, and I'm looking forward to be able to getting into that piece of property and walking about. They absolutely have concerns, though, that I would like to walk in there all year, and I hope that it's engineered correctly for this high water. There's a lot of high water in there right now. Maybe there's a time where there would be water that would go over it once in a while, but you want to make this so it's engineered correctly so you can get in there multiple times, not just for runners. I also coach with the track teams. I'm not on the running side, but I know they're always talking about getting out on off the roads, and Weeburn used to be a place they could run there and pushed off that, I believe. They have to go to Waverly. So this would be an actual great location for them to practice on the full length and to get their, once in a while, have competition here instead of having to go off site for it. So I think it would be a great asset, what they're doing, if they made just the track where it is, but they've got the engineering part is concerning, especially this time of year. Now it's frozen, the water stays up a little higher right now. I went through there the other day, and it would be a little tough on that western end right now to not have a bridge there. So as far as parking is concerned, I'm going to stay out of that one, but there were some interesting ideas that were brought up about juniors trying to park there. So I don't know how that would be handled, but so that's my tidbit from not living there, but I've been in town, and that area had been disturbed back in the '60s. I grew up in that area, and so it's not a virgin area. It had been moved around. There were horse trails there. My sister took riding lessons. There's an old house, as you said. So it's not a virgin area, but it's a beautiful spot, and it can be worked in if you can just walk through it and enjoy running it, walking it, and whatever. So I did. Thanks.
Thank you, Bill. Is there somebody else? Do you see anybody else?
I don't.
Okay, no? Okay. Joe, would you like to come back and respond?
Sure. Right, I'm just going through my notes here. There are a lot of comments about the parking. Again, for the record, Joseph Canis, professional engineer. And as one of the comments was about the parking by the high school students, and that's certainly a management issue that would need to be coordinated between the Board of Ed, the Police Commission, and the P&Z Commission. So that
Yeah, that's a very significant issue.
Right,
Okay,
yeah, I agree.
I think we've, I don't think you've had high schoolers yet, but.
I have a junior in high school.
But no, I know that's an issue there, and I mean, that's one thing that, I don't, Rich, we have to talk about how we bring that up to the police commission, up to.
I suggest they bring it up at planning and zoning, and the only reason I mentioned, I'd spoken to Mr. Ginsburg about it, and there, not really to wetlands, but he mentioned things like signage, that the police it would be more than likely a police commission issue, but it could be brought up, obviously, at planning and zoning.
Yeah. Because the kids parking there, let's put it as high schoolers, are not notorious for following signs.
I have not, I have not looked at that issue. I've only looked at it, and there is, Joe, there is sufficient space to stay on the side of the wall.
Yes, there is.
That was my concern, and
From a wetland perspective, I agree.
They can stay on that side of the wall.
Yeah, there are no wetlands on the stone wall side of the street.
So I would strongly encourage they bring that up with P&Z.
Okay.
Let's see. Another was a question about the boardwalk and its impact on water flow. The boardwalk will sit off the ground, so water will be able to pass underneath it. Let's see here. There were a number of comments about the water being deep and knee-deep in some areas, and we are running this up on the ridge. Now, there was another comment about boulders, and if need be, we can adjust the path accordingly. The surveyor didn't pick up every boulder out there, and so if a boulder is too large to be moved, obviously we would have to go around it.
Joe, Ms. Bogdan mentioned flagging. You have not flagged the path, correct?
The path has not been flagged. The flags out there are for wetlands.
Are the wetland boundary?
That's the wetland boundary.
Okay. That's what so the flags are all throughout the property. It does not represent where the path is.
Right, that's right.
Okay.
That's exactly right. Those are wetland flags.
How difficult would it be to do that?
Well, we'd have to get a surveyor out there to, so that would be dependent on the surveyor's schedule as to when that could be done. But it's something, Seymour's office is capable of doing.
Just to flag the path?
To flag the path, right.
Now you need a survey for that? Okay.
Somebody would have to.
Because you mentioned flexibility before, and now we're getting surveys. Okay, I'm just
I
saying
see
because
what
they
you're
raised a very
saying.
interesting point of hey, let's see where it would actually go. Okay,
Right.
Because this is one thing. Okay, it's another thing. Typically, when we see plans for houses and stuff like that, X number of feet from,
Right, exactly.
from this stake to this and this from
Right,
here,
right.
et cetera. And so here is just, you know, I can't say I have a wave of a pen, but it's not as.
Right, yeah, it's somewhere between a wave and a pen and a surveyor, I see what you're saying, but to really, you know, get it, you know, I think a surveyor's in a better position because they would just have GPS points where they could go out there in the field, whereas we'd have to measure off distances and it'd be a little more
Joe,
complicated.
you mentioned that this path is subject to minor shifts to avoid a tree here or
Right.
whatever. They would be able to do that at the same time and revise potentially and show it exactly where it.
Yeah,
or
we
closer
could,
to-
yeah, you know, once it's, the path is identified in the field,
They
we
could
could,
give you
you know,
those
make field
coordinates.
adjustments, right?
Joe, I got,
Sure.
going back to the parking lot, a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Number one, why do you need a parking lot, number one?
Mhm.
Why was that spot chosen, number two? And did you look at any other alternatives, number three?
Okay, sure. And I'll answer those questions in reverse. When we first looked at the property, and you know, we were asked to provide some parking spaces. What we looked at for a parking space location, we were trying to put something inside the site, but the wetlands just didn't bear that out. So what we did was we relocated the parking to Nutmeg Lane, so it would be parallel to get it further away from the wetlands. Do we need the parking? The parking actually came as a request from the Parks and Rec Department, and that was included in their master plan.
Well, okay, the reason for that is that you and I, having no business on high school property during high school hours, when it's in session, if we chose to walk it, we couldn't park there. We get, you know, we'd attract attention. So they need some off high school property parking.
Okay.
For us to do it during
Right.
school hours.
Right, yeah, and the rationale is that, you know, this is a park for everybody in Darien to use, right? So you need to facilitate some sort of access to it. And the Parks and Rec Department doesn't have control of the spaces on Board of Ed property, so this was their solution to that.
Okay, thank you.
And so could you address the issue again about the high water table and the usability of the path on the
Right,
western side?
I was out there, I don't remember how long ago it was sometime in 2016, I believe. And there were wetter areas, but those were concentrated in the interior of the site. What we did was we did have a topographic survey that, you know, so we did try to keep that up high in certain areas. So we could take a second look at that to, you know, maybe take another look at it now where the water's higher. But, you know, based on the best available information we had at the time, we kept it, you know, in higher areas. Obviously, it's going to, in a wetland area for parts of it, so it is going to be wet, and that's only to be expected. But the other reason is that's why we put that other area up on a boardwalk.
So running cross-country through a wet track is not unusual.
It's not unusual, no.
But the public wouldn't walk it.
The public probably would not walk it. Right?
Running.
Well, I guess we're talking, I mean, you know, adjectives are always difficult because, you know, and, you know, people were using, I think, the word knee-deep water at some point in time. And so, you know.
You wouldn't want to run through that.
You wouldn't want to run through knee-deep.
I don't think,
That
I don't
would
think,
kill
you
your
know,
time.
ankle maybe, you know, splashing around, that's always fun as a kid. Okay, but not as, not knee-deep water. It'd be interesting to, you know, to see it when, and this is why I'm almost, from speaking for myself just as a member of the commission, interested to almost see where we go, just because, you know, to see the veracity of the statement. Okay, is it, how significantly deep is this underwater? Okay, the other thing is, I forget who mentioned the alternative, to just cut it a little shorter and put it up a little farther east of where the western piece is there. Just to challenge, just to check the viability of that, because I thought that was an interesting point too. Because you're not going to change the length of the course in any significant manner.
Right.
Cross-country course is very, varying distances. There's no such
Exactly,
thing as, a mile is a mile is a mile. A cross-country course, by definition, goes up and down, so no cross-country course is the same.
Right, exactly.
And so that'd be interesting to see, to consider that alternative.
Right, and one of the reasons why we didn't push that further east, and I didn't realize the Parks and Rec Department had mapped it out to that extent, is that by pushing the path further east, you have greater wetland impact. We were trying to get it out of the flag wetland area, so that's why we ran it fairly, pretty much due north.
I think they were talking about the southwest corner.
Oh, the southwest corner.
Yeah,
Okay.
bringing that up.
Well, that's something we could take a look at also.
Because that'd be interesting to see if
Right,
it isn't.
Can you address like how the path will be constructed, what sort of equipment you might need?
Yeah, what we're thinking of is a Bobcat type of equipment. It's wouldn't be too much different from how an Audubon trail is constructed. There wouldn't be large backhoes or excavators or something like that going through there, just because you have limited horizontal clearances. And a lot of the work would have to be done by hand. You're talking a lot of wheelbarrows with crushed stone on them being dumped into place and then taken back out. So it's a lot of hand labor also.
Okay, I don't know. For me personally, Rich, I think we should have it mapped out just to see if it's underwater, just to see where it goes. Lots of people have said boulders and trees and stuff like this. You've said no, but until
You're talking about the wetland crossing, I think.
The wetlands crossing, yeah.
Yeah, to me, in my opinion, the boardwalk is not going to have a significant impact. It is commonly done.
No.
So
the gravel side.
And boardwalks go through very wet areas there.
No, I don't have a problem with the boardwalk. The boardwalk's going to be above, water can flow underneath. So there's the issue, of course, of debris blocking things, but that's a Board of Ed issue. I guess it's on Board of Ed property, I think, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so they're going to, somehow that's going to have to be cleaned up and maintained.
Well, I'm going to look at that,
Yeah, and so maybe we can give them a heads up to go clean it out, if you have Ed Gentile's number to come up.
Well, no, it's not Ed's.
No, it's not Ed, that's right, it's not, yeah,
It's
that's
Mike
right.
Lynch.
It's a Mike Lynch.
Thank you. No, we were talking about, several members of the gravel track said that the gravel track, if we walked it today, would be significantly underwater. That's, that, and they live there, so I take them at their word. That'd be interesting to see if we mapped it out, you and I could go out there, Joe, and take a look and say if it's true. Okay, because at that point in time, how many months a year would it be viable during what sort of rain sessions? Guess if it's knee deep, it's knee deep. If it's not, it's not. Okay,
Right.
but
Exactly.
go out there in the springtime or something like that when it's typically wetter.
Wetter, right.
Yeah. So I don't know. How does anybody else have questions or comments here?
I think I'd like to go
would you like
back
to
and
come up and speak?
revisit property.
Of
Oh,
course,
no, you have
please,
to come up to
please.
the podium. No, wait till
Christine,
you come
please.
up to the podium, please. Thank you.
I just want to ask, because you were talking about that, about going out and walking it, I was just wondering if it also makes sense, not to just do it once, but to do it on multiple occasions.
Sure.
Because like we're saying is that, if you happen to go out there a stretch where, maybe it's a week that we haven't had rain, you're going to say, oh, okay, it's great. And again, we do live there, and it's not great. It's one of those things that every time it rains, my husband says, put the house on the market because, it really is. When you have to spend $20,000 to have basement systems, put in your basement, we are severely underwater. So, to have someone come out and tell you that there's not water back there, it's very frustrating. It's like, we have water back there, so.
Well, it's marked wetlands. It's very clearly here. You see on the map here that it's marked wetlands. It has wetland soil.
Right. But there's a difference, what you were
Mr. Wright
saying.
back there,
There's
Mr.
a
Wright back
difference
there.
between someone running through a puddle,
Yeah.
and there's another thing when.
Totally agreed.
My backyard is, halfway full of water.
No, totally agreed, and that's why we're suggesting that we flag it, and then we go through and see, once it's flagged, we go back there at any point in time
Okay, so
to
we
go
can do it
and,
on
to go and
multiple-
view that,
Okay,
so.
yeah.
So I think that's a fair question,
Okay.
yeah. Okay?
Yep.
Okay.
Hearing's open?
Hearing, yeah, I think I want to maintain the hearing open at this point in time. Does anybody?
That's a good suggestion. I'd like to go back and revisit that property again.
Yeah, so just for the, we're going to keep the hearing open at this point in time in order to go and, rewalk the I want to go see it because it's, now that there's snow there, but to go see once the snow melts, something like this, there's going to be rain on Sunday, go walk it, and just to see what, I suggest that, if you want to get together with Rich to do that as long as we're not in a group of
Well, you want
three.
it located, you
Yeah,
can,
well,
you can walk it,
Well, you can walk it anytime.
You can walk the general area.
But I'd be very interested to see when you get that, when you raise that, Joe, if you can contact Rich so we can contact
Sure.
the rest of us.
Right, and, typically we'd have to wait until the snow melts for, to locate it, just so we can see the boulders and things
No,
like
I
that.
totally agree. Totally agree.
Sure,
come on up.
You have to come on up.
Come on up.
Wait till you come up to the microphone,
And identify,
Concerned
speak.
about the
Thank you.
volume of water, and some people said it was knee-deep. A few weeks ago, and they said it's a lake, there was so much water, and it was frozen, that the Darien High School students were skating. So that gives you an idea, and they had enough room to take a running start and skate across it for several yards. So that kind of gives you an idea how much water was
Right.
building up and how deep it is.
Good, thank you.
All right.
Thank you, as well. Okay, so we're going to keep the hearing open, and it'll be on our agenda, is it March 3rd?
April 3rd.
April 3rd, thank you. Okay. Okay, moving on, we have, next out of business is agent approvals. EPCA 2019 Oxridge Riding and Racket Club, 512 Middlesex Road, proposing maintenance of an existing drainage swale in an upland review area. The site is shown on Assessor's Map number 6 as lot number 149. Did everybody have a chance to review that? Please, if you take your conversations
We're
outside.
still in public meeting. Thank you.
Everybody, you okay with it? Jim?
Just before,
Maintenance of an existing drainage swale.
Right, the existing swale is relatively narrow, and it's, they couldn't see any way of cleaning it without equipment. It would be cruel to make them do it by hand. So if it had been done by hand, I would have said, forget, just do it.
Yes.
Anytime there's a piece of equipment, the wetland is the paddock, so it's not much of a regular, it is a wetland, but it's.
No.
But just for the record and for the conversation, we're talking, Rich, help me just understand this submission
Oh, yeah.
slightly better. Oh, there's a
It's
little
just,
dog.
the area in yellow
Yeah,
is actually within 50 feet of this wetland, which is in the paddock. And this, they just showed the whole length of it, but the area that's in the upland review area is where it's highlighted in yellow.
for those that don't know, I think this, if I know this area you're talking about, which is is it in the southeast corner of the property that is all of Oxridge Hunt Club?
It's in the, yeah, as you're coming off of Hollow Tree, the entrance they're using for construction.
Yes, it's right in there.
You follow it past the construction trailer.
Middlesex
I'm sorry.
Road.
Off of Middlesex, you follow it past there's a construction trailer.
You mean off of Mansfield, which is the construction entrance for members today?
Middlesex is now the construction
They're now
entrance.
using
And
Middlesex.
the members and guests are now using the
Mansfield.
Yeah,
Mansfield
so-
entrance.
so
So
you-
going
where
from
is this?
Mansfield,
So you're coming in from Mansfield, past some of the barn and so forth. There's the house over here.
And it's on
the
the
staff
right
house.
of that
So it's
lane.
between the barn and where the staff house is. These are all paddocks.
Which I want to be sure everybody is aware, and it says it's a conservation easement. This is Darien Land Trust conservation easement property.
The ditch too?
That I don't know,
Okay.
but just before I went
Actually,
off,
I think it shows it going to the edge of here. So I think it's off the
conservation easement.
easement property.
I only bring that up just to be sure everybody's aware that that is the case. So the Hunt Club, before the transfer with the town of Darien, so this goes back 5 years or so, this is not dated.
No, this is a section of their survey.
I believe I'm right when I say the Hunt Club owned 39 acres of land in total.
Right.
And under a prior head of the Oxbridge Hunt Club, there was a transaction made. I believe one of the purposes of that transaction on behalf of the Oxbridge Hunt Club was to lower their real estate taxes. And they made it, I was still on that board and was part of this whole thing. There was a permanent conservation easement for, this is 5.72 acres. I was thinking it was slightly larger than that, but maybe that was the end result. And it could still be used by the Hunt Club for its original purpose. That is, horses could graze, and they could keep the paddocks as paddocks.
And it can never be developed.
And it could never be developed.
Right.
Excellent. Yeah.
And then subsequent to that, the club has made their decision to do whatever they've done with the town of Darien, I think way down over here.
Right.
Where Middlesex turns
Right.
up towards Mansfield.
Right.
But this is protected forever, and I was just.
And there are wetlands there, and it's,
Oh, yes.
it's a permitted use as of right. The horse.
The horse
farming.
It's a farming
Correct.
activity.
And again, I just think that was important for you guys to know that that was why this is designated conservation easement, because it again is with the Darien Land Trust.
So the easement just, it goes up here? Is that what this
It ends at the road, I believe.
solid line is all the way up here through all of the paddocks?
There are better plans than this.
The arrow shows it
goes
ending at the edge of the fence line, and this is the road.
So where is the actual easement?
I think it's all of,
It's this.
it's a 6 or 8 acre parcel. This
Probably
is-
all of it.
It's probably
Okay.
that number.
If you had the whole
At the
map,
end
it
of the
would be,
day.
yeah.
Going,
It's all the
going
paddocks.
towards Mansfield
Towards
Avenue,
Mansfield. Yeah.
which is over here.
Yeah, because there's these used paddocks that they use here, and then there's a whole section of disused paddocks that
Correct,
clearly haven't been.
correct.
But we're talking about, so it's the whole paddock area, even the currently used.
Well, 5
ones.
acres of it
Correct.
apparently at
Is the-
least.
And to the,
Okay. And what,
if I'm getting my directions right, to the,
how far does it go that way? Because there's a polo barn over here.
I think the barns were over here.
There's a small polo barn that used to be used for polo back in the day that has not been used in ages. But that's like here, it's down here. So I was wondering how far over.
Not very far. And there was a Connecticut Light and Power small crossing point, or the best word I can think of at the moment, that was all part of those discussions, because they got involved and said, we need that, place to transfer electric from wherever it's coming from on Mansfield Avenue to, I think, residents over here, or maybe even to the club. So it was almost carved out and just, it sits in the middle of this thing.
Okay.
And it's, it's an existing condition, but I don't mean to drag this meeting on, but I just thought it was important. And I was curious because I didn't really understand what was happening.
Right.
And I imagine the Land Trust would like to know what's happening there. Only because they
Yeah.
They're the
pay
conservators.
attention to it.
Yeah, they're the conservators.
Correct. Thank you.
So I think anybody have any objection? No? Okay. Next one is EPC 10, 2019, Chris and Robert Gilbert.
That should be 12 Harbor Road. and
12.
We'll correct it in the legal notice.
Okay, 12 Harbor Road, Proposing a patio in an upland review area. The site is shown on Assessor's Map 51 as lot number 23. Anybody have any conversation on that one?
No issue.
Okay. Moving on, we've got,
You just want to discuss briefly the first portion of the track on the high school property. I mean, I assume, did you want me to write a draft an approval, or is there any reason?
On the high school property?
On the high school property?
On the high school property.
Well, I
We
just,
approved that.
you need to deliberate, so.
Oh.
So if that's the feeling of the commission.
I thought we took a vote.
We took a vote.
Well, I
That
thought we
was
took a
old
vote to approve
business,
it.
wasn't it?
We did.
Oh, I apologize.
Yeah, up
Um,
here.
You mean?
Yeah, no, I apologize.
You mean
No, no.
EPC 4,
No, that was,
2019?
yeah, I already wrote that one, I'm sorry. That was- Yep,
We gave you some comment, a couple of minor typo things, right?
yes, yeah.
Okay.
No, I apologize. I'm sorry, I meant to say Weed Beach. I knew there was one that you closed the hearing.
Oh, Weed
Yeah.
Beach. Oh,
Yeah,
we,
so I take it back, not the high school land. I knew there was one closed hearing.
yep.
So if you're
On Weed
okay
Beach,
with
yeah.
that, I'll write up, I'll draft something.
I don't think there's any
Okay.
objection.
We just wanted to
Good.
give the public a chance to
Right,
speak up.
If there was anything there, so.
no, I'll consider that deliberated and.
So we want to get to minutes?
Yes.
It was sadly lacking in typos.
I got one. I got one. His name is Joe Canis.
Correct.
Did I misspell Joe's name? Or that's-
In the bottom of the first page.
Oh, no. I'll put him in spell check.
But contrary to Kelly's
Oh, you
thinking,
have lots? Okay, of course you did. There's probably an apostrophe that's.
didn't you add the commission determined, and don't you mean for that to be deleted here?
Oh, it's duplicated.
After Mr. Justin?
Oh, it's duplicated.
Correct.
Yep, okay, I got it.
So that's page one.
Yeah, cross
Page
that one out.
2, I have a question. Well, I don't know if I have a question. Up in the line, fourth paragraph, it reads, Mr. Irvin asked about long-term maintenance. Mr. Canis said they may need to replace the gravel in 3 to 5 years. My recollection, I wasn't at this, but I did watch Channel 79.
Yep.
After coming back from being out of town. And I thought there was words to the effect that they would replace it or add to it.
Oh, okay.
You know, if
Well,
some of it, because Michael Irvin did.
I think that I meant either replace or.
Or just go in and,
maintain.
you know, drop another bucket of,
Yeah.
another, what do you call
Or
it,
add.
hand truck, not hand truck.
Yeah, I would say. I could say-
Wheelbarrow, thank you,
I'll
sir.
change that to replace or add.
Add to or replace.
Yeah.
And then down at the bottom of page 2, under EPC 7, 2019, Mr. Smith's home, weren't there some conversations?
Yeah, there's no comment.
There's no
Only
comments
question mark there.
after the 112
Oh.
Raymond Street?
Oh, yeah, there should be, the applicant wasn't there, so I will add something to
Because-
the effect that the applicant.
That we were just gonna postpone, we just
was-
postponed
yeah.
it to this meeting.
I didn't.
I actually went back and watched it again to say, wait a second, I thought there was some commentary that you wanted
I-
to pick up in your notes.
I will look at that, yeah. I think there was no applicant representative there.
Right, they weren't here.
So I think my comments were to the effect that it had to be reviewed, the engineering need to be reviewed.
Correct, there was, because my,
Yeah, okay.
um,
It was pretty brief.
it was very brief, but I
Because
think
there was
there is room or.
Yeah, no, there should be
or-
there should be something in there.
half
Yep.
a sentence or more there. There was a note to Mr. DeVesta to do some work, speaking of
Yes,
engineering.
yep. I think I might have, I'll look again at the tape, but I think it was something to do with either Darren's comments or Darren's lack of review.
If it'll save you some time, it's at 33 minutes and 45 seconds.
No, I can get
On
that
the
pretty
tape.
quick. Okay, I'll mark that down. I'm gonna mark that down.
Short.
On page 2, the 5th paragraph down, is that, the way that's written, is that The statement by Mr. Canis, that there are impacts, Mr. Canis said the wetlands was stating that there will be no impact.
Yeah, you had asked about about the contradiction. There really is none. I mean, you can have an impact that does not impact the wetlands and functions. So you can't say that putting
Like the
gravel in a
boardwalk.
wetland is
Right.
no impact.
Right.
I mean, walking on a wetland is an impact. But clearly putting gravel down and working around the roots of the trees, it may be insignificant, but there is some, so he has to put that in the application, like how much area is being changed to gravel.
Okay.
But then on the other hand, you have heard the wetland scientists say that the functions and values are not impacted. So that I think we use the term impact both ways. You could also change the second impact to effect, but that's not what we do usually. That's not how we would phrase it.
Okay. I have a motion to approve. Thank you, Gunnar. Thank you, Kelly. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Yes, there's no other business. Movement to adjourn then?
Wait, do we vote on the Weed Beach?
No, I'm going to write that
You're
one
gonna
up.
write it up.
That's the-
Right.
I meant, that's the
They're
one
gonna
I
write it
meant
up
to
and then
say
we'll,
is was closed.
we'll approve it next meeting.
Okay.
By the way, just out of curiosity, when Joe appears here, does he have written authorization to represent the Board of Ed or the?
He is he has been hired by them as their engineer, so it's no different than a builder hires an engineer.
Yeah,
to
but
my mind.
typically, don't we have a letter that states that so-and-so will have to represent me?
I have letters of permission from the Board of Ed to the DAF,
Okay.
the applicant.
That's fine.
So if the
Okay.
DAF
Yeah, they have to do it. then.
hires
Okay.
Joe, yeah, and of course, the Board of Ed hires Joe by themselves.
For themselves for different
And I
things.
believe, you know,
Yeah. Okay. Meeting, can I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you, everyone. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We're off to